Talkative Carl. Today has long been I've been long since waiting for this a while. I just had to get some other stuff out the way, but today we'll be reviewing. Well, I will be reviewing the Cowboy Bebop series, the single uh, season of the series. I the first time I actually watched this, believe it or not, was last year during the shutdown period during the quarantine area, and I had Hulu, so like I could easily binge watch as many anime as I want to. But people hold this show in such high regard because it came out during the '90s. I didn't really follow it all that much. I mean, at all, I should say. It didn't seem like my cup of tea at the time, which is strange because I love like my fair share of sci-fi. But I actually had the time to sit down, watch it the whole way through, and boy, do I tell you how much I love this show. And I was like, it's well worth the hype that it was praised to be one of the best animes, despite being like short lived. It's like only I'm surprised I only did one season of this, but considering the ending, and this is all spoilers by the way. So if you haven't seen Cowboy Bebop, please spoilers, please don't watch this yet until you've seen. Oh, I think it was just 26 episodes until you've seen the entire season of Cowboy Bebop. It's only one season. You can watch the whole thing through. Then you can come back to this video, and then you can easily leave a comment and talk about it and everything like that. So you're warned. It's spoilers. But anyway, I should have put the caption down. It's gonna be a spoiler review, but whatever. Anyway, this show is awesome. I'm just gonna put that right out there. When I was reviewing it for the channel, I will be like, it'll be my third time watching it because I watched it twice last year. Once during the shutdown period, and second time during getting towards the fall. And the third time was earlier this year, around like January, when I started to decide that I'm going to do like TV show reviews of certain shows. And next month I will be doing like a season review of Yu-Gi-Oh, and then Jackie Chan Adventures. That'll be up and coming in foreseeable months. I'm probably gonna do maybe like a couple of season reviews of those shows per month. But I want to get Cowboy Bebop first because it's been sitting here for a minute. But I jotted down some notes in case I forgot, because certain things that stuck out for me that I want to critique, because it's not one of those shows like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, which I watched so many times that like I pretty much know what the ins, not thoroughly the ins and outs, but enough of it where I can be very engaged and talk about particular things. But I want to start off with like uh, the music. The music in this, the jazz is awesome. I love it. I love the intro, but I think the after each ending of an episode, that music, I wish I wrote down like what the artist was. I mean, you can easily look it up, but the song at the end of each episode, I love hearing. It's just pleasing to the ears. I'm not like a jazz fan that much, but I do have an appreciation. But even gain more of a respect for that particular music thanks to this and Disney Soul, because like they utilize jazz in such a way that's like it's just like if you're not a jazz fan, you gain an appreciation thanks to things like Cowboy Bebop. And it's just I wrote down it's like it's just that it because this show is pretty much like a western slash noir slash neo noir kind of environment, and the music set the tone perfectly. And it's like set in like a I always talk about how like Star Wars seems more like a more realistic future compared that and Blade Runner seems more a realistic future compared to like something like Star Trek, where it seemed like too clean of a future. Uh, it is like doesn't seem like there's no like dirtiness anywhere because you know you gotta keep some element of grunginess to it to make it seem like the tech can be futuristic, but it gotta be some kind of like jankiness to it here and there, you know. And uh, and not only that, it's like each episode can easily feel like to me like almost like a mini movie in a way because there's so much is condensed into an episode where it's like it's like so like so tight and you tell enough of the story where it's like an overall arcing plot, but each episode has their own little thing tackling a particular issue, and it's so refined and tight. It's just like seamless. It's like it's phenomenal, and I wish more anime can do certain things like that. But they got their own different tones to wherever they're doing. But I love Cowboy Bebop for that. I thought that was awesome. Uh, yeah, of course, like the voice actors is phenomenal. Steve Bloom, I love Steve Bloom. I love him more so as Wolverine than anything, but him as Spike is awesome. I think was one of his first voice acting roles of the time, but he definitely uh, uh, did his thing in this, and like I love Steve Blum. I've loved the interviews he's always in. He does this teaching gig of teaching other up and coming voice actors. I don't know if it was in L.A. or anything like that, but like I took voice acting classes too. But man, it will be like you know I wish I was like close by. I mean, they doing online classes, but it's like I don't know. It's just like being taught by Steve Bloom would have been like awesome, but I already took like voice acting class as it is. But it's not. It doesn't mean like I can't still learn for someone who's experienced as him, because like him and Tara Strong, Johnny Young Bach, Troy Baker, Nolan North. Those are and the Phil Lamar. They're all pioneers when it comes to like voice acting. Like it, I challenge you to go through certain TV shows or anime specifically without you come across not one of them, because they're almost in everything. It's kind of like Sam Jackson effect. They're almost in everything, you know. But man, he's my favorite when it comes to like Wolverine. Like when I hear Wolverine speak, if it's not Hugh Jackman, it's Steve Bloom, because those two like are Wolverine to me. Hugh Jackman and Steve Bloom will always be Wolverine in my eyes. Live action and then voice acting, like those are the two. Can't go wrong with those two. And then you got Bayou. I think he might be uh, from what's that southern area where you get Mardi Gras at. I'm blanking like down in the Bayou because it sounds like Bayou to me. Uh, uh, Billingsley, who voices Jet Black, really. Then you got Faye Valentine, voiced by Wendy Lee. Uh, Vicious, voiced by Skip Stelrack, and Julia Mary Elizabeth McGlynn. Oh, I didn't write down who. Oh yeah, here we go. Edward. I love Edward, man. Probably like my second favorite character in this entire show, next to Spike. But Edward was voiced by Melissa Fawn. So like all the voice actors, or at least the main people from the show that you see more often, did a phenomenal job. Uh, but I want to start off with like the episode one, like because the names of the episodes were very cool. You got Asteroid Blues, and pretty much like it's just like a way to get into the story, or at least get you into the whole atmosphere and the world of Cowboy Bebop. Pretty much like Spike is tracking bounty. That's his typical job. He's a bounty hunter. Him and the others are pretty much bounty hunters, uh, and he's trying to target this small fry kind of drug dealer, or at least the drug in this future world. It's called Red Eye, where it's kind of like a almost like a steroid, but it puts you in this like manic rage in a way. But it's kind of dangerous if you just like any kind of hardcore drug. It puts your body in like a danger. And he meets this woman uh, who pretty much like these, this kind of like Bonnie and Clyde thing they got going on, but she wants out of the life, want to live just a life in peace, not in like luxury, but just a peaceful life. Just want to get out of this whole this life of this whole gang. Well, not gang, but this whole drug dealing thing. Because she's essentially like his mule, not like sticking like the drugs in her body or anything like that, but just her job is also hiding it and smuggling it. But she doesn't. She really cares for the guy, but seeing him destroying himself was like it was getting too much for her. She wanted like just and typical in a lot of uh, those crime type of dramas like Bonnie and Clyde. It's like they want to get out of the life. And the other person's like, yeah, promise just do this one more score, and we're getting out of this. And it's like a laugh for luxury kind of thing. And obviously, it didn't end so well. And like she, fast forward to the end, she like shoots in it's like this whole high speed space uh, space chase kind of thing. It's not a high speed chase like your typical movie. This is like and like because they managed to do like this like set up this space thing. It was like a space battle, at least like us be able to journey through space with like these aircraft carriers, similar to some you see in like Star Wars, but they don't go in different galaxies. They manage this little these little space gates things where you can jettison towards different planets in the actual solar system, but you can't go far beyond their own solar system. So that's how much they gotten as far as like technological in this world. And I think realistically, I think in the real world, I think that could easily be possible. And I don't know, maybe 100 years at the most. Well, with Elon Musk having anything to say about it, I'm pretty sure he thinks it's probably half the time. But uh, who knows? But I honestly think that's feasibly possible in like technological standpoints of what we have realistically. But of course, along the way, they know it's going to get caught. She ends up he's in a manic state as it is, and he's taking so much drugs, and like he's done at this point, and like yeah, then going out like Bonnie and Clyde in a way where she suits him, the the cops in a way shoot down the craft. They're in space, so they just float in space. But the touching thing is out of this whole episode is between like Spike and the woman who they both have like this little brief meeting of each other earlier in the episode, and it's like he knew who she was. He's playing coy for the most part, but Spike is a charming guy, despite certain like a-hole tendencies, but their exchange was like very genuine. It's like great storytelling, and like the voice acting is just like so on point. And of course, uh, the way she goes out is kind of sad because and he feels something for the woman, not in a romantic way, but just like he empathized, because given what he as we're going through the whole entire series, given what he gone through when his little criminal background, and understanding that how much she wants to get out of life, to see how tragic she ended up and not achieving that overall goal, it puts him in a more melancholy mood towards the end of the episode. and of course, he's sitting there like because they're struggling as like bounty hunters trying to like earn like the next big score so they always need some money to certain repairs for the ship or trying to get food because early in the episodes like you're trying to like Jet sitting there cooking. He's the cook and the mechanic, but he's sitting there cooking like it's like beef and beef and noodles or beef and something, but there's no beef. They only got like the noodles or vegetables or something like that, and it's like, why are you calling it beef and noodles when there's no beef here? And it's like, well, pretend there's beef. It's kind of that kind of thing. It's like, but then towards the in the episode, he's like, he's in such a mood right now. It's like he's not expressing it, but you understand it, given like the way it's acted and how the scene's playing out. That oh, food's ready. Oh, okay, just accepting it. It's just like the way the scene, like you understand everything in this one episode, and I was so engaged to see like what's going on next. So the next episode, it's one of the funny episodes, and this show also has like a lot of references. Like the second episode, yeah, if you ever seen like a Bruce Lee film, have you ever seen his fight between uh, Bruce Lee and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Uh, uh, this is like a bounty in this episode who's modeled after that particular character that Abdul played, and the character is actually named Abdul. And and in the scene, like when him and Spike fight, Spike starts wielding this nunchucks, just like uh, I'm about to say Jet Li, but Bruce Lee, and a lot of stuff in the character of Spike is modeled to a certain degree of Bruce Lee with martial arts skills and everything. He's not like an ace in martial arts, but he's like he earned his first black belt and that's it. He didn't like try to refine it even further beyond just that, but he's good enough to hold his own in a fight. And yeah, basically he's trying to catch Abdul Hakim, uh, and he's trying to, and Abdul is trying to sell off this dog who's supposedly worth a lot of money, and their money is kind of weird in this universe. They don't have like dollars or anything. They call it wulongs, and it's like that's a funny word, like wulong, and uh, the dog eventually find out isn't worth more than just two wulongs, despite the pedigree, I guess. But it was something more to it because like not only Abdul was trying to get this dog sold off to a particular buyer, but there's this other group of people who looks like dog catchers in a way, but it's like some other look like scientists. It's like I can't remember what exactly they're affiliated with, and it doesn't really mean all that much. But they also tracking them down, but they're obviously not succeeding. But in the end, because Spike hates two things. He mentioned this, at a certain point through the series, like it's two things I hate. Jet is women, well not women, but in general, it's just like women with bad attitudes, and dogs and children. And eventually, he has all three on the ship, and it bugs him to no end. But I always thought that was funny. But in the end, he ended up getting this dog, and is in the house, not a house, but in the ship, and he like pretty much adopted the dog. Ein, that's the dog's name, Ein, and I love Ein. A lot of people love Ein. Is a great dog. I'm not a dog person, but yeah, I do love Ein as the pet of the Bebop crew. Okay, uh, and then the next episode we got like Honky Talk Women. Is an intro to Faye Valentine. Now, of all of the main characters, I think Faye is low on the totem pole for me, but it's not like I don't like her. I do like her as a character. She's a way better like female anime character than most others that like I have like a pet peeve with, like Taya Gardner and Yu-Gi-Oh and Sakura in Naruto. Is just like this faux fake bravado or at least try hardness of the characters to seem like just as strong as like their male counterparts, and it's so phony and cheesy. I hate that in anime. That and then this and they do like stupid speeches like Taya, and it equates to nothing. At least somewhat equates to nothing. It's dull. It's boring. I really don't care for it. But I think Faye is like a better anime female led character that's like she's genuine with her bravado. She's not putting on airs here. She's that typical femme fatale. That's the thing. She's the typical femme fatale for this type of atmosphere. And like I buy everything she does, and like her arc is very interesting. But as far as like all the main characters, I think she's above Ayn, obviously, because Ayn he doesn't have that much of a character on their own. Besides that last episode, and what he does with like Edward in the future episodes. But this honky tonk women, you get to meet this femme fatale, uh, and she's dealing with like this casino boss and everything like that. She gets captured a lot in this series, but uh, uh, by no means it's kind of weird. It's like even though she captures, she's by no means like a damsel in distress. She's always seemed like she's always in control of the situation, but she still, despite being captured here and there, she still holds her own. She's still an effective fighter, and like especially in like space fighting and like and shootouts and stuff like that. She's good as like a cool backup, especially if Jet's not around. And you got episode 4, like Getaway Shuffle. Uh, yeah, I broke down. I still don't understand how Wuon currency works, but it's uh, basically Spike and the gangs dealing with these equal terrorists led by this woman named Twinkle Marie. Uh, and she seems like a ruthless like kind of equal terrorist. It's like not in a, I mean it's like almost in a way of like Ra's al Ghul in a way, because it's like she it's like if PETA is somebody who's like coming in as like a member of PETA and then rose through the ranks and then took that group and let it and turn them into like an equal terrorist. That's what essentially what this kind of group is. Like PETA taken it to its furthest extreme, if led by Charles Manson in a way, you know. Uh, they're holding on to this particular this concoction, kind of like this virus that essentially, if humans come in contact, reverts them into their primal state of apes. Which is like, and there's certain bizarre things that happens in this particular world. This kind of like set the tippy top for me. It's like very bizarre that you got like this concoction that reverts you back to your primordial state, uh, a primal state in a way. Uh, in the end, because even though they captured the leader, they have to release them because the other followers pretty much like holding some other people like hostage, or at least threatened to douse them with this virus. So they pretty much got to like, most people have this policy about like you don't negotiate with terrorists kind of thing, but extreme circumstances they had to turn her loose, so they did. But Spike, being Spike, he slipped the vial that he had into her pocket, and then of course, the terrorists get into some kind of accident or like uh, space fight or something like that, and like the vial falls out of her pocket, it spills, gets everywhere, and then it's like I mean that's pretty much the end of her. And then don't know what, I can't remember what happened to, I don't know if the ship blew up or it just got stranded in the middle of space, but that was the end of them. Never heard of them ever again. But I felt bad that not only that they are trapped in the mindset of apes, then they're drifting in space on top of all that. And it's like, okay, I kind of wish that, like, okay, they, somebody, the cops came out in space, collected the ship, and like held them in some kind of facility until they find like a cure so they can bring them back to the human state and then put them in jail in a way. I kind of, in my head, kind of think that might have happened, but realistically, I think they drifted in space forever until they eventually die of starvations or whatever. Then you got like the next episode, Ballad of the Fallen Angels. This episode with uh, two gangs coming to some sort of truce, but this is the introduction of Vicious. Vicious, the character, is kind of like low rent Virgil from Devil May Cry, and I'm not sure how he ranks in terms of anime villains for a lot of people, but he's very low for me. I mean, it's like his name is Vicious for a reason. He has his vicious moments, and he is like proficient in like sword fighting. He got this crow that always perches on his shoulder and everything like that. He is a very devious individual, and like his machinations is like makes him like a very deadly villain in this world. But compared to someone like Aizen and Bleach uh, Orochimaru and Naruto or Madara, even Madara is like he is so low on the totem pole in so far as like anime villains. It's like uh, I mean, it's so much like I mean he does cool stuff, but it's just like I say, he's low on the totem pole for me. Uh, I'm curious to know what you guys think about Vicious, but this is like his first introduction, and it's like you learn that he's trying to overthrow the syndicate, which Spike used to be a part of, and partners, or at least used to be friends, or at least associates with Vicious, until Vicious pretty much like trying to take over. He's attacking, or at least try to off Spike, because, like, I guess in a way, he, in his words, is like he's like a dog who lost his bite in a way, or a wolf who lost his bite. It's like, and just same thing as like the criminal organizations that's leading the syndicate right now. He doesn't like them no more because he thinks they're losing their bite because they're holding these little truths amongst all these gamers. No, he wants constant battles. He wants people to constantly be at each other's throats. His broken mind in a way is that he's constantly wants like the thrill of a fight, or like just like the edginess of people's like base sensibilities. And this whole truce thing doesn't sit right with him at all. He doesn't want peace at all. He wants constant battles between these gangs and the like just the sheer fight of it. Yeah, that's what I wrote it down right here. Like beast who lost his fangs. That's what he calls Spike. A beast who lost his fangs. And like, of course, this ends up in a shootout in a church, but uh, neither Spike nor Vicious end unscathed in a way, but they live. But they meet up again towards the end. Again, getting towards the end of the season. And the show can get very introspective too. But I mean, if you've seen the series, you know what I'm talking about. Then you got the next episode. What do you call it? Sympathy for the Devil. This is another episode. It's kind of like it's like I wrote it down. It's like give me vibes like Rosemary's Baby kind of thing, because you're dealing with this supposed kid who's just like a complete psychopath, and like he uh, he plays like the grandson of this old guy who's in a wheelchair that's like invalid in a way, but uh, as uh, as the episode goes on, everybody understand like this kid's like years ago was a kid, but his it's some kind of catastrophe. I didn't write it down, but it's some kind of catastrophe that happened where he came in contact with something that killed his parents, but he remained young for years. Uh, Still set in a relative future, but not as futuristic as it is currently as present day would be. But he grew so sadistic that he couldn't get older. He always remained a kid. And I guess that kind of warped his mind a bit because there's been other stuff that I've seen where like a particular individual who got caught in the same scenario where it's like interviewing a. If you watch the movie Interview with the Vampire, where Kristen Dunst, as a kid at the time, was like a vampiress. Uh, she was changed into a vampire by the Brad Pitt's character, and because I guess her parents died of the plague the certain time frame of the movie, and over time she grew resentful, irritable, and then psycho eventually because she can never get older, never look like any of the women she come across because she cannot develop and do certain things adults can. She will always be viewed as like a child. And the same thing with this character. It's like he pretty much lost it. He can't get older. He can't like do certain things because for the most part he's like gotta bring this like invalid old man around who can't talk or anything like that around so he can be able to go and come as he somewhat pleases. And like, he goes to these little clubs and plays this harmonica. It's very beautiful and everything like that. Like, but uh, uh, Spike come across him. He figures out how to stop him, and this uh, particular trank gun he has, where it has this concoction that he fired at the kid. Then you get to see him age so rapidly, and it's kind of like nightmare feel almost. It's like, but he dies with a smile on his face because he finally get to die, which is something I guess he really ultimately wants, and because he does a lot of reckless stuff because he knows he can't die and let alone get old. So yeah, I I mean, if you check out the episode, it's very uh uh, uh or towards the beginning of the episode, it's like getting kind of like Rosemary Baby vibes. That's why I'm in my mind, but getting towards the end, it's like uh, it's uh, it's just like it's still horrific to watch him rapidly go old and just die in peace. But it's just you get the sense of pity for the kid, and you well some level of understanding. Okay, like at least you're glad that he at least got some peace at the end. The fact that he can just move on, because I guess to some people, I mean, being immoral might seem like awesome, but you don't want to be an immoral in like a certain state, like a child, and like be perpetually a child forever. That will suck if you're immortal and you're a child. On top of that, it's like you can't go older. It's like I kind of feel like you know I want to be immortal in a way, the same way as Wolverine is immortal. Like some people like not like a vampire or anything, because that'll suck. Cause you can't go out during the day and you gotta feed on blood just to sustain your life. But uh, I think the proper immortality, like I would probably want, was somewhere akin to like Wolverine and Deadpool. That, I mean, there's certain comics where like they do eventually show old age, but it's so far in the future. It's like 2099 in the comic books is when you actually see like Deadpool, for example, actually see him like have gray beard and everything like that. It's like that's when they actually age set in. Because for so long they just maintained that uh, uh, late 30s, early 40s age group. They maintained that for such a long time. But finally, gray hair and stuff like that started to set in so far in the future, like this practically Star Trek-ish, then like, you know, as in a way that's kind of like what I want. I want to be able to like maintain what I look now, but by the time like gray hair sets in, I want to be so far in the future that you know, that's just me. Then they got the next episode, Heavy Metal Queen. This was one of the lesser episodes that I cared about. This is pretty much like uh dealing with this like these kind of classic truckers, but space truckers, and uh, Spike has to deal with this space trucker named VT, and she has like this issue with bounty hunters because her husband was a bounty hunter and he died, tragically, and so she, has like resentment until like eventually Spike, changed her tune because the way he carried himself, and especially after assisting him with a capture of a bounty himself. But it is, this is a good brief thing here because like I didn't really care for this episode all that much. It still looks good. The voice acting is incredible. It's just like, out of all the good episodes, this is still the lesser one. I gotta say. Then you got like Waltz for Venus. Uh, this episode still better than last, but still one of the lesser ones. But one of the more solemn ones, getting towards the end. But Spike runs into this thief called Rocco, who's trying to get back to his girl, or at least trying to get out of, once again, another character trying to get out of like a certain lifestyle of some gang mentality. And like, he always find himself like running from people he wants to be able to fight back, especially for the girl he cares for, or what's his sister? Yeah, it's his sister. And he wants to, be able to protect his sister and get out his life and start a life with his sister. And he runs to Spike and saw Spike how he be able to take him down after he tried to mug Spike. And Spike, through some constant harping on Rocco's part, uh, finally relents and say, "Okay, I'll teach you a few moves just to be able to like be able to defend yourself at least." So, he became like a mentor mentee kind of relationship, and like, think of this kid as like a good friend, and then he eventually made up with his sister, but uh the people that the Rocco was running from eventually caught with him, beat him to death eventually, but well, not beat him to death, but he got caught up in like a shootout and mortally wounded. And like the ending, at least like during that getting out of the climax of the situation, he passes on, and it's like, Spike was so distraught. He just it was heartbreaking. It was just like, just hold on, just hold on. I'll get somebody, and like you see him like just down smiling, knowing that like and in the end he made like a really cool friend and someone he trusts, and knowing he will look out for his sister. And so yes, uh, Spike was crushed by the end, but he made sure his sisters well her sister was the sister was sad, but she appreciated that what Spike managed to do for him and be a friend to Rocco, who didn't have that much friends, given the life he led. But yeah, this is like uh, one of the most solemn episodes. Then this one is definitely one of my favorites, Jamming with Edward. When you first meet Edward, and I love Edward so much, and I love the voice actor and the dialogue that Edward has every time. It puts a smile on my face every time Edward speaks, because Edward talks in the third person. Come play with Edward. Edward gonna Edward's gonna look this up. Come on, Ein, you come play with Edward. And it's like, I love Edward. I love the. Usually, I hate when characters speak in the third person, except when it comes to Edward. Something about this voice actor, or at least the character that's being developed, something about Edward is that when she speaks into the third person, I got a kick out of it. I don't know why, but I love Edward so much. It was so much fun to just to watch do anything. But the first time I watched the show, I didn't know Edward was a girl. I mean, it's kind of androgynous, so it's like, it's certain boys that looks like girls and vice versa. But yeah, Edward's a girl, despite like the name being a boy's name. But whatever. But then uh this is the first time you actually see Earth, because like Earth is pretty much like abandoned in a way, because everybody pretty much colonized other planets in the solar system uh, to live off there. And I guess Earth is completely, not completely, but for the most part, abandoned. After, I guess, like certain wars or other global uh, phenomenon that kind of like ruined the place, nobody holds Earth in high regard at all on the show. But Edward's on Earth, pretty much on her own, just aside from certain technology that she keeps around, because she's a very like a tech wizard for her age. And there was this like alien spacecraft she managed to keep, at least not alien, but like this global satellite thing that was created way back in the 90s, that the AI eventually got turned on somehow. It doesn't know where it's at, what time it is, kind of thing like that. But eventually it was going to get shut down. But the AI eventually made friends with Edward in a way, because the only way like the thing was able to communicate with other life forms was like, because it has like this like orbital beam that kind of like shoots down at the Earth, and it draws certain shapes, kind of like the Nazca lines. But over the course of the episode, you find out that it pretty much is doing it because the computer wanted friends, and like he had to draw his friends in a way until he came across Edward. Uh, yeah, I mentioned that this episode plays pretty fast and loose with the stereotypes, especially with Jet and Spike giving Faye crap about being like a woman, and Faye does a lot of stereotypes with like hackers, calling them pasty face geeks, and it's like this show was made in like late '90s, so it's we all made certain jokes back then that we wouldn't normally do now. So we have to keep that in mind. But these were the jokes at the time. We all made our fair share. At least some comedians to this day still make woman jokes and like nerd jokes, but it's just like we was just letting them fly back in the day. But yeah, even though it wasn't cool then either, but we personally, I think like back in the 90s, we all universally understood, at least in social norms, that what's a joke is a joke, and what's like a serious racial or stereotypical thing for this particular group or this particular person. We knew uh, we had like some kind of understanding, like, okay, he's being honestly serious. This is not a joke kind of thing. We somehow understood that. We lost that over time for some reason, where we can't a joke can't be a joke anymore. Whereas like at least we lost the common understanding of what is a joke and what should be taken seriously. But anyway, yeah, eventually, while Edward doesn't want this, she made friends with this satellite computer, and they managed to like, in terms of an agreement she made with the Bebop crew, it's like, take Edward, along with you, and I'll help you get the satellite. So they managed to download. They use this floppy thing. This is like back in the 90s. Floppy was still a thing, but they program, or at least downloaded the AI's computer, made a copy, but download the actual AI into this floppy, so Edward can put it into her little laptop thing she keeps around herself. But they made like a fake copy to remain in the satellite, so when it's shot down by the police, they think they gotten rid of it, and that was the end of that. So then the Bebop crew recruited another member, Edward, and this is when I mentioned how like Spike really like was beside himself, like, Jet, like I told you, I don't want any I don't like women with attitude, children, or dogs. Why do I have all three on this ship? And it cracked me up every time. Then we got episode 10. We trying to speed through this. They got episode 10. Ganymede elegy, and this is you get to learn about Jet's little background. He used to be a cop. Uh, uh, he returns back to his home planet in a way, uh, and he's trying to like reconnect with his ex girlfriend, not knowing, realizing she, uh, I don't think she's remarried, but she's in a committed relationship with somebody else, and she moved on. And like for a lot of years, he had this little mindset. I mean, like uh, that he you know lied, pretty much like lying to himself about how like his life was with his ex, uh, how glorious it was, but given certain circumstances of what his how he lost his arm and all other stuff, that being a cop, all that came crashing down on him. He just took the life of a bounty hunter, but he got his warped vision in his mind of how his life usually was compared to what it actually was when he heard from his ex girlfriend's mouth herself. Like, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Uh, when you're working, you left me alone. Like, you kept me almost like in like this little bubble. Like, you won't let me take care of things on my own, or like you treat me like a fragile little thing. And it's like essentially he kept her caged in a way, and like he loved her, of course, but it's just that he did not allow her to do certain things on her own or make mistakes and learn from her own. He just liked to handle every doggone thing, and she felt trapped. So he was ended things, but he pretty much got a clue now. But and then of course the guy she was with, you know, and with some bad people, eventually got uh, locked up. But he didn't in the end go back to her, but uh, his life and what he thought it was, he pretty much just romanticizing it, then and then looking at it through rose-colored glasses without uh, somebody pointing out like that's not how it really was. You pretty much lying to yourself, dude. And this is a solemn, another solemn episode, but I thoroughly enjoyed this and seeing like Jet's past. And because and prior to this episode, he did mention of, I think he probably did mention about the kind of life he used to have, at least somewhat sprinkle that information here and there. And then they got Toys in the Attic. It's kind of like it's another lesson episode that I really I didn't say I didn't like it, but it's like one of those lesser episodes where it's pretty much like not a rip off, but like homage and aliens. This little goop thing that's coming around, paralyzing and making the members sick, and it's down to like Spike to deal with it because apparently there's some moldy thing in like an old refrigerator among the ship that took on life of its own kind of thing, and like eventually he eject that thing out of the spacecraft because we think it was some unknown creature that hasn't been studied before, but it's just like some piece of mold that took a life on its own. This is kind of trippy, but yeah, it's uh, it's not a bad episode, but it's just like one of the lower on totem poles with me. Then you got Jupiter Jace, another favorite of mine, with awesome jazz music. Uh, this is about some character that Vicious and Spike knew as well, part of this military team that Vicious was on mostly. Uh, but I think this is probably like one of those kind of animes that's very more progressive for its time than I don't know if anybody gave it like that much credit for, because the main character that's introduced in here, I didn't write down the person's name, uh, but this character like had like a sex change. This is like he still at face value looks like a guy, but Faye meets up with this person, and she was like, surprised to discover that yeah, this is like a woman now, and the uh, city that she's in, and on this other planet, uh, is more like a sausage fest. There's not much women there, if at all, and it's a lot of like sex workers here who were like at least are like trans, and it's like very progressive. It's like you got like not like a lead character, but like a prominent character that's obviously of trans individual of the LGBTQ plus community, and that is just like I thought it was awesome that they be able to have someone like that who's prominent, and they didn't make the whole sex. I mean, aside from like the when you see like the sex workers that come into play, it's very minor, but I was about to say like they don't play it like a joke. Well, at least not with like the main person that they're dealing with. Uh, but they don't play like the whole trans thing. They don't make it transphobic or anything like that, and they don't make fun of it or anything like that. It's there, and like, all right, it's established. We're moving on. It's all about like the deeper layers to it, rather than the sex change. That's not the main focus. I mean, it explains. They do explain why uh, she did it, uh, and it's mostly because of Vicious and like how like Vicious turned uh, her life upside down after war because uh, uh, Vicious pretty much like ruined his career, and he couldn't like get any. At least I could be wrong. I'm going by memory here. I didn't thoroughly write all that down, but yeah, pretty much like you know it's some kind of trial and like the character was blamed for something that they obviously didn't do, and Vicious didn't back him, and pretty much ruined the rest of his life. So he pretty much like spend most of his her sorry spend most of her time playing small gigs with the saxophone. Is like the music in this is amazing. I think this is my favorite one with the music. At least it's not intro or the outro, but man, it's just like blew me away. It ended tragically with her when Vicious turned up again, but uh, and it's like Vicious didn't think nothing of her. She wanted answers. Uh, he gave her an honest answer, but it's just like he didn't think much of it. It was like he Vicious got like a warped sense of how he sees people. He's just disposable in a way. And it's kind of heartbreaking. But then the next uh, episode, Bohemian Rhapsody, which is funny to me. Uh, Bebop gang tracking down this criminal mastermind, this old man pretty much like looking for a thrill for a worthy opponent who turns out to be Ed. And constant in this, he's a chess master and a scientist back in the day who was the one who created those space gates in the series. But he got old, and people thought he might be some kind of terrorist or anything like that because uh, things he hacked into that kind of disrupts certain electronics and stuff like that. He's gotta find some kind of thrill or something to do, but he lives off in this outskirts of this space sector or the solar system where like kind of like like Hobo Town that you see like in certain movies, or like if you go into a certain area of a particular city, there's like a particular area where like hobos live. Uh, there's like kind of like these tents and rundown shacks or whatever like that. It's pretty much like that version, but in space where he's at, because uh, he he went off the grid after the launch of these like space gate things, but then he played in this like constant uh, chess match between Edward, because Edward's like extremely smart despite the goofiness, and like they kept playing so Spike and the others can eventually track this guy down. Eventually, he succumbed to uh, his old age and passed away, knowing that he found like a worthy opponent, that Edward beat him, a chess master who never lost a match before in chess. So he had to die knowing that he got his throat, pretty much. It was an awesome episode. I was like, I really enjoyed this one. Then another episode is My Valentine, showing Faye's backstory, which is kind of cool. Did find it interesting that the guy that Faye, because Faye, I want to get to it right now before I forget. Faye pretty much like got in an accident when she was young, before this advancement of technology. She got in a coma and she finally woken up where things are so drastically different. And her supposed doctor of the time, who pretty much like supposed to have been designed to look like I'll say Jeff Clooney, George Clooney, but then uh, was kind of funny but slash weird again towards the end of the episode where she thought he might have died in like a car accident, being chased by some people who were like loan sharks or something like that. But then uh, he comes up out of nowhere and she's like tracking down somebody else and she bumped into him and like he's fat now and like she still got feelings for him, which is I thought it was still cool that she still holds some type of feelings for him. But he left her with like a lot of debt because I guess the rules in this universe is like whoever you're with, whatever debt they had is pretty much passed on to you, so you gotta do it. Because Faye's constantly in constant debt, and that's why she's working like a bounty hunter to earn some quick cash. But she loved the finer things in life. But knowing eventually in episode down the line, she learns of her history eventually because she just like resigned herself to living the life of a bounty hunter. Next episode is another jet centered story, the Black Dog Serenade. Uh, uh, yeah, find out about how Jet lost his arm. He was pretty much betrayed by a partner. Typical in a lot of like cop dramas, like or at least movies where like your partner turned out to be like a shady person who's working for the bad guys. It's like that kind of thing. And then Jet ended up finding out when they tracking down this other former cop associate that was also on the take, and like Jet pretty much like dealing with both his past with his like occupation, his former occupation, and deal with his past with his ex girlfriend. Pretty much come to the close, uh, satisfying somewhat to him, but not all the way because it's kind of ends on a solemn mood. Like, pretty much the life he knew wasn't the life he thought it was. Like his friends betrayed him, and his wife didn't want to deal with him anymore. So it's kind of like a bittersweet ending for him, or at least for his backstory. Then you got Mushroom Samba. It's an Ed episode. It's kind of just one of those fun episodes, and this is like kind of like another play on certain stuff like 70s era icons like Shaft and Foxy Brown. These two other different bounty hunters in a way, and it's just funny as hell. And I love this episode because they don't play like black people like goofballs in this. Like just like with Abdul Hakim, like I don't know. I did not write down the names of these two people, but they pretty much like modeled after Shaft and Foxy Brown, two different people never met before, but they sitting there trying to take down this other black character. It's like a heavy set dude with braids, who's like trying to sell these janky mushrooms that kind of get you high in a way. But Edward going in the middle of town trying to find some food for the crew, and it's like, she just messing things up for these two characters who's trying to take down this one other character selling off these mushrooms. It's just funny. It's like a funny episode. Nice after the somber stuff in the previous episode. This one is a nice little, just a reprieve from all that melodrama. It's like they kind of this show. You can tell great shows when they find the right balance between like the solemn stuff or the heavy hitter kind of stuff and like the more fun stuff. They find the right balance. They don't. It's not like uh, they don't give you like what you call those like you know double takes. Is it doesn't jerk you around back and forth constantly. Like you give you a nice set of stuff where it's like fun, and a nice set of stuff that's like more melodrama, or at least the right amount of drama, and like they found like a right balance, and they do it so well. I love the show for that. Next episode is like speaking of like speak like a child. Uh, this is where you learn about Faye's childhood, and they found this VHS tape, which is like a recording made during like I think Faye's birthday as a child before the accident, and I was like, wow, that you would think like I mean we already think VHS tapes are like kind of retro right now, but like looking back on it now, it's like wow, that's like very very ancient technology, and the things that we used to have in the '90s, like they're treated like the way we treat like vintage uh those black recording record players. They're treating like in this show episode they treating like the VHS tapes and uh, um, players like the way we treat vintage vinyls. And it's like it's funny how things like will shape out because that's where we probably would treat VHS at this point. That just pretty much like vinyls. It's like very old school. Then we got another fun episode, Wild Horses, uh, where another episode referencing like this like mechanic that Spike meets up with, pretty much referencing Doc and Marty McFly from Back to the Future, the way they're designed. Except Marty and this is like a black guy, but man, they look. You talking about Rick and Morty looks pretty much like a rip, not a rip off, but a reference to Doc and Morty. This is definitely like Doc and Morty, Marty right here. So it's a fun episode, another fun episode. Not much to it. And then you got another episode, Perot Le Fou, as French, obviously. Perot Le Fou. Spike has to stop a madman. All right, this was an intense episode. This like this kind of I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like the suit, but yeah, he's definitely like heavy set guy, but it's kind of like a psychopath who's he grins like the Joker, and he goes around just killing people. Even people who might see his face, he hunts them relentlessly. Because Spike, coming from like a lounge area and bumps into this psychopath who's in the middle of killing uh, uh, these like not security but like high end security. It looks like those kind of high end security guys. It look like Secret Service kind of way, kind of thing. But he blows him away, and then Spike just stumbles upon the situation, and then now like this guy's pretty much like try to come after Spike. Spike doing all he can, trying to come up with all kinds of tricks just to get away from this dude, and he finally stumbles into a river and they wash him down quick, so he couldn't be chased after. But this dude was experimenting on, and like he broke out eventually, and took out these his captors, and he just kind of like I wrote down he's kind of like John Wick mixed with the Joker in a way, because he's like, and then they find out about the guy that his mind is pretty much so warped to the point where it's like he regresses to the mind of a child in a way, and that further validates that when towards the end of the episode when like Spike end up challenges this guy to like a shootout battle at like this abandoned amusement park, and like Spike finally got the jump on him, and then he's sitting there waddling around, you know, crying like a child in a way, and then one of these little like this animatronic giant little thing came around, like it was like a parade going around, and this giant I'm messing up the name, animatronic machine came out and stomps on the guy. That's the end of him. But this one was like kind of like a crazy ride of an episode. Definitely one of my favorites. It's like it was a very intense thing. And you got next episode of Boogie Woogie Feng Shui. Another jet centered episode where he runs into run to old friends, a daughter of one of his older friends who was thought to be long dead, but helps out his daughter trying to find out what happened to him. And then throughout this episode, I'm thinking like, of course she's of age. She's probably older than 18, but still probably at the bare minimum in her 20s. But it's like, Jet references times when last time he saw her, she was like knee high and everything like that. And it's like, you get the sense that it's like, this dude getting romantic feelings towards one of his friend's daughters that he used to know when she was like a toddler. It's like, it's bizarre and very weird and off-putting to me. But then Faye makes a comment when they meet the girl, and Faye makes like a comment about her, thinking like she might be stringing Jet along. But then I wrote down this thing because I thought what Spike said in response to this was very good. Is that Spike's pretty much tell her that not all women are as selfish as you are. And, Faye does have her selfish moments, and I'm glad he was able to like take her down a peg on that one, because like no, not all women act like Faye. Like, they are genuine women out there, and despite her young appearance, I wrote down like despite her young appearance, like Jet does seem like there might be like a spark of romance between these two. And then another funny thing is that there's a lot of smoking in this series, especially among like Faye, Jet, and Spike. It's like she doesn't smoke, and then when they crowd around her, Faye and Spike sitting there smoking cigarettes while they're looking up some piece of information about what's going on with her father. Jet telling everybody like, if you're gonna smoke outside. And it's like he's very protective. It's like, whoa, when did that become a rule? We all smoking here. Like, and it's like they didn't say all that when Edward. Obviously, Edward doesn't smoke. Edward's a child. But it's like this is the first time somebody mentions like, okay, you gotta smoke outside. You don't smoke in here no more. This is a non-smoking zone now. While he's here, because he obviously sitting there coughing and stuff like. Because they sitting there all in her grill, trying to like cuddle around her, look at her computer that she's looking at, and they're sitting there smoking so freaking heavily. But that's something I wanted to point out. I thought that was cool. But yeah, they eventually find out what happened to her father. He's tracked to some kind of nexus that eventually he's gonna die at the end. But she finally get the closure that she needs from him before it ended tragically with his passing. But she eventually got back home. She's gonna live her life kind of thing. And like, it's one of the piece of Jet's past that he can probably honestly say that probably ends better than what he experienced with like his former friends and former ex-girlfriend. This is probably the more solid relationship that ends on a high note for him. Then you got Cowboy Funk, and this one's another fun one where this guy, a literal space cowboy, this guy who turns out to be like a rich dude who just he flips flops from like different uh, interest. And right now, I mean, prior to being a bounty hunter, he had like an interest in something else. I forgot what it was. I don't know if it was like some kind of uh, yoga instructor or something like that. Something very hippy dippy. But he got interested in bounty hunter, and he's taking it so seriously that he's like doing this whole cowboy thing, a literal space cowboy thing. Got a horse and everything like that, and it throws everybody off just watching a guy literally on a horse that they probably seem like they don't never seen a horse in real life before, and it's like and it's the first time when like the main bounty isn't the focal point. He's just like a thing that moved the plot along almost, because this is pretty much about these two that Spike having like an issue with this dude. Like gets under his skin every time he meets up with him. It's kind of like one of those like annoying brother kind of situations. And like Faye made his comment, it's like, of course you got irritation with him. He's just like you. That's how we feel about when we're around you all the time. And it's like you find somebody who's just as annoying as you, and now you can't take it. So you know how it feels. And she has a point in a way. But it's just like a fun episode. Just these two. I mean, they end on like a bit of like a friendship thing. It's like he's like yeah. Then of course this is like the last three episodes. I didn't write down enough, so I'm going off memory right now. But it's pretty much going towards like the end of the series, and Spike eventually run into a former flame of his own that used to be in the criminal syndicate with him, but the whole arc with Vicious and him has finally come to a head at this point, and his former girl that he finally is talking with and trying to see if they can like get out of the grip of Vicious, and of course she goes down tragically eventually, but then Spike decided to want to handle things on his own without any backup from Faye or Jet. Uh, Finally confronts Vicious, and I gotta say the final battle was kind of like anticlimactic in a way for me personally. Which I wasn't expecting like Dragon Ball Z level fights or even Naruto level of fight between these two, but I expected something more rather than like just like a fight that you will see between two average people. I mean, even though one's wielding guns and the other wielding a sword, uh, I expected more, especially two people who's so efficient with fighting. Uh, but then, of course, even prior to this, before I get to the end result, Edward eventually moved along because they did run into her father, who left her at an orphanage for I forgot what the reason was. It was just that's definitely Edward's father. The way like he behaves is very oddballish, But I do like the fact that eventually Edward come to the realization that they back on Earth again when they run to her father. She doesn't go on with her father. She just moves on her own. I guess in a way, in my opinion, at least I think that she had her. She wanted to move on, like at least had like a little adventure. She was like a seeking adventure outside of Earth, in which she did get enough of that with Spike and the crew, and I guess she had her fill of it. I guess, and she and Ein she pretty much like painted the floor of the bebop with her like a smiley face and said like just pretty much saying goodbye, which kind of like left people like on a down. And didn't get like a proper goodbye to them. She's up and left with a pretty much like a gigantic note on the floor. It's like you painted like a freaking floor. That's the one thing. That's kind of like what a freak you paint like a gigantic happy face and like a little brief note saying like bye and everything like that. Like, and they got to clean up, but you see her just moseying along on the earth like barefoot. She's constantly barefoot in this movie. I don't know, in this show, and it's like people walk around barefoot. I'm surprised they don't get cut on rocks and glass. It's kind of like odd. But anyway, she pretty much just moved along with Aang in tow, and just on her little life journey, she had her adventure, and like what's in store for Edward is completely up to like interpretation. But I'm hoping that she like having like a decent life of her own. But I love Edward, and like I kind of wish she stayed with the Bebop crew because she's pretty much on her own aside from Ein. But it's like I love the character of Edward. She's my favorite character of the show at all. I mean, of overall, and I just like it's like the ending. Like a lot of endings of the shows, it's usually ambiguous. But I would like to think that she found some kind of life of her own on Earth, at least by some fashion. But then, of course, the ending overall of the show, Vicious dies from the wounds inflicted by Spike. But then he managed to, cut off Spike enough where he looks like he's mortally wounded. And you talking about ambiguous endings, the way like Spike just ends the whole entire thing with like, which I've seen like a constant like memes and references from that because I've seen this more often, but I never know what was referencing. I think I knew it was referencing Cowboy Bebop, but I never seen it show before, so I don't know. Like I didn't know. I knew it ended tragically. I knew of that because I didn't care to be spoiled for a time, but I finally got the whole context of the situation. But then he ends, with like I think officers responding to like the big shootout in this building where Vicious pretty much took over the syndicate, killed like the former leaders and everything like that. But Spike coming down, wounded, badly hurt, and like just it ends off with like bang, and he falls to the ground on some steps. Seemingly he died. So uh, that's another thing. Like in my head, I kind of think like, I mean, you could easily bleed out and die, but I kind of think they rushed him to the hospital and patched him up so he can like hopefully like live on with like Jet and Faye. But that's one thing that's up to interpretation. But that is pretty much my review of the at least going over the episodes, but my entire review of the entire series itself. I love it, despite like probably like 3 or 4 episodes out of the 26 that I think was like very low on the tone pole. I think this is like a very superior show, and part of me is glad that it's like one and done. Sometimes one and done episode, or at least one and done series, can be efficient if you tell enough of the story where it's only one season, no more than that, and I think it only had one movie, then that is perfectly fine and reasonable. That's why I had like uh, the whole Joker movie. Like a lot of people believe there's supposed to be some kind of sequel to that, which I don't want. I don't think it's needed. Sometimes one and done movies or TV shows is good enough. You do not just because it might do well does not mean you should cater like no matter how what dump trucks of money they pull in front of your house. If you don't have any more story to tell with these characters, leave it alone. Just like I had with like the Dragon Ball Super, I think they should have ended after GT. Despite, I mean, I think they just pretty much like want to make Dragon Ball Super because they want to make sure that it doesn't, because certain corny stuff they did that didn't make any sense back in the day, they pretty much kind of like retrofitted so that way it can make sense now moving forward. Just like with what they did with Broly in the new Broly movie, which is fine, I guess, but it's kind of like uh, I think it's best that it should just ended after GT and left it be. I think, despite the issues with GT, it's a decent ending. But then again, there's certain elements in Dragon Ball Super that I love. But I think, even though they keep making more manga of Dragon Ball Z, I think when like the whole Super thing is over, they end Dragon Ball Z. Period. No more. Just like I don't really care for Boruto Because after Naruto Shippuden finally ended, they should have just left it be. Show that he has kids with Hinata and everything like that. They moved on with the next generation, leave it ambiguous. They finally achieved peace among the villages. And Naruto became Hokage. All that stuff. They should have left it be. They told enough of the story. Let it go. And because like wherever you come after, especially after so many years, and you coming back to it, even though you might have the same voice cast and everything like that, sometimes it doesn't work out well, and that's just my take on it. But Cowboy Bebop is a solid show. One season, you can easily go through it. Highly recommend it. The hype is real, you guys. So definitely check it out. But thank you all for joining me. I will be going over a quick review of Raya and the Last Dragon. I really want to talk about that for at least like a good 30 minutes or so. But next month I will be back with reviewing the first couple of seasons, or at least arcs, of Yu-Gi-Oh! And, well, yeah. It depending on how like it works out, because I might just do maybe one season review for well, I watched enough Yu-Gi-Oh to can do like at least a couple of seasons review, because I will do like the duel. I'm watching the Duelist Kingdom arc again in its entirety, and then I'll go over to the next arc over, and then I might review both next month, middle of next month at some point, and I will review like the maybe the first two seasons of Jackie Chan Adventures for the channel. So look forward to that. Then more watch-alongs of Delia's Warrior next month. So those will be my next on-camera discussion videos. So I might do more like, depending on the movie, I might do movie reviews as like a toss in. So, but I'm not 100% on that all the time. Just depends on what I'm in the mood to do. But yeah. So thank you all for joining me. I'll see you guys next time. Take care. And I'll see you all later, Space Cowboys.